Now, I'm going to be honest. My laptop wasn't blowing its fan that loud, and people weren't playing music as loud in the background when I sat down to do this. But I'm going to continue to record this video. I'm not going to allow that. Hopefully, when I actually go to do the audio and I do the noise reduction, it just takes most of that out. So if you don't hear it, then great. It did its job. Was just watching that Nation Squid video on the 2000s. I was watching that Technology Connection video on algorithms. And they were making me think about a couple things. And Nation Squid particularly was talking about how much the 2000s was influenced by looking forward to the future. And I thought about that. I thought about the conversation around algorithms. I thought about how much social media has changed. I thought about how there seems to be this emphasis, at least in online culture, around I don't want to say nostalgia necessarily, because a lot of it is stuff that the people who are partaking in it didn't necessarily grow up with. Sometimes, yes, it overlaps, but most of the time, no. I think it's just like a yearning to go back to the past. And I wonder if from the 2000s era of looking forward to the 2010s era of being the first, like, modern internet decade, and there was so much pushback around pushing music online and pushing film online, and like I was a kid during that time, but I've always been aware, so I remember some of the things that were like going on. And I just think about how much of a pushback there was in the early 2010s and how slow a lot of major companies were to moving away from like television and those kind of things to like online platforms. How music companies like struggled with artists like Earl Sweatshirt when he was trying to release Doris, and he had a certain way that he wanted to release it to his fan base, and they completely went against his ideas and did it the traditional label way that they wanted to do it, and it kind of just ruined his entire vision for the album. And I just think about how, like, during that time, there was these young people that grew up with the internet and were trying to do things a different way. And there were all these people in the older generations that were, like, pushing back against it. And then by the end of the 2000s, it seemed like they were starting to embrace it, but they were trying to figure out, okay, how do we embrace it and make the most amount of money from it? And I think that's what the whole YouTube adpocalypse was about. I think that's what the whole the fight with Spotify was about, when they were trying to figure out like payouts between artists and Spotify for the music thing. I think when you saw like people like Drake and Chance putting out those exclusive albums on Apple Music, and what kind of deals were going to be able to be made between the record labels and these technology companies in this kind of way. When you think about the 2000s, I think that transition was all about taking the futuristic approach from the 2000s, and in the 2010s, like midway through, I think people realized that they had to be online. Like I remember like Gary Vee pushing it a lot. Like so many people hadn't yet took their businesses, even like online mostly. And so you had this older generation finally being able to embrace the technologies of the internet and like figuring out how do we best monetize it. And I think the problem with that and the overlap that you're seeing now is that there is this thing in the 2010s where like I think we're taking the monetization of things way too far. Like, I think the algorithms are being pushed too much. I think that's the whole problem with AI. People have been seeing this for a decade now, where these companies have been basically telling us our main focus is how to nickel and dime you and maximize our profits. And you see it in gaming, you see it in music. Like, I saw someone the other day talking about how if you're a new artist, you shouldn't be putting out an album, because a 15-song album, I don't care what the art is about. It's not, the art ain't gonna pay the bills. And it's like that's become our mindset now. Like, our mindset has just been accepting the fact that these companies have been telling us for the past like 12, 13 years, we're trying to figure out how to nickel and dime you, how to get every cent we possibly can. And it worked, though, because it created a culture where people have accepted it, where some young people are growing up in a time where it's normal. So they're just accepting it as how it is, and they don't really know anything different. And it's not like, even though technology is advanced to the point where research and being able to look back at history is easier than ever, so many of these young kids just do not do it. They don't care about the things before them. And that's not anything new. Like, I know for a fact my generation was like that. I know the generation before me was like that. It's been like that forever in time. Most people don't care to look back. You know what I mean? Like, but I think it's more dangerous than ever now not looking back. Because you get used to these realities that are just poor. You know? Like, they're rich in terms of stuff. They're rich in terms of offerings. Like, I'm a YouTube Premium user now, right? Because I watch too much YouTube on my TV. Like, I use YouTube as my primary media consumption, right? And so I just watch too many YouTube videos on TV. I watch too many long form YouTube videos on TV for there to be 15 ad breaks in the middle of every freaking video. And so the fact that I can get ad-free YouTube and I can basically combine my Spotify subscription into that, it just comes out being cheaper for me. But I was telling somebody, I was like, it's not necessarily that I think that YouTube Premium is a great service. I think they just made the free experience so unbearable. You have to pay for it if you're a guy like me and you use YouTube that much. Like, yes, there's a value add in also getting YouTube music. But if they ever decide that they're going to take away the YouTube music portion of it, or if they up that price to like an untenable amount, then I don't know how worth it is at that point, because you still have to pay for individual movies on the YouTube platform. It's not like they give you movies. Like, they lock the high bit rate streams. They lock the ad-free experience behind a paywall. And I don't necessarily mind locking the ad-free experience behind a paywall, but the trade-off for that is that, bro, you will come across videos where it's like an ad every couple of minutes. And it's ridiculous. That's what I mean by we live in an era where it's like now the monetization of things, like, they figured it out to a point, and they figured out that consumers will pay. Like, they just will pay for it. 2K found out that people just will pay for the same game every year and VC. EA just found out that people will pay for skins. They will pay for battle passes. Even in $60 games, it's not just that the game has to be free to play for people to consider spending that much money. People will buy your game every single year and pay on top of that. So not only are we selling games for $70, $80 now, but for a large, sizable portion of our player base, we're getting $200+ out of them every time we release a game. It's wild to me, considering the era that I grew up in and how I just don't participate in that. But I understand how we got here. I understand how YouTube got there. I understand how the streaming companies got there. And because I understand how all the corporations got there. I understand where they're trying to go with the AI thing, even though I think we're still a long way away from it. I think people are scared of the idea of it right now because it's advancing rapidly and people are just like, oh my God, the AI thing. Like, we know what they're trying to do. We know, like, so many of these companies are just trying to maximize profits at a large level. But the thing is, one, with any kind of technology, yes, it replaces large sectors of jobs, but it also typically creates new ones. And I'm not as scared of the AI thing as everybody else, especially in its infancy stages, because I think there are just too many things and too many people that it can help rather than being a detriment. It just depends on how you look at it. But like, that's a longer discussion that you would have to have with me, and like, I would have to tell you about like personal situations and things like that. Like, so I don't really want to have that discussion on this video, but I'm saying that to say I think that's where the cynicism comes from and the fear comes from, and people are just like, where did we go wrong? Like, I think people are saying that to themselves. I think that's why you're seeing the big boom in looking back to the past, because people are sitting back and they're saying, like, if streaming sounded like a good idea at the time, and it felt like a good idea for like the first 6 years, but now it's just kind of become this monster, and it's just like, like, maybe I do want to go back to owning CDs. Maybe I do want to go back to owning Blu-rays. Maybe I do want to go back to dressing, in non-designer clothes, and you know what I mean? Like, maybe I do want to own these things. Maybe I do want to buy a game console and actually have the disc. Like, digital sounded like a good thing in the 360 era where we were finally getting hard drives, and the PS4 came out, like, and computers were already implementing SSDs, and so the speeds on the things were getting faster and faster. Like, and it sounded like a good idea to have everything digital because you could have so many of them, so many things like ready to access at any time without having to wait on anything, without having to take up any space, and their performance was better. But it's just like, games are so unoptimized now that it's like the performance isn't better. The space management isn't better. That's the thing. All the things that sounded good to us in the late 2000s and the early 2010s that we adopted, they were good at first, and then it just, like, as the world shifted and as these companies look to increase profit margins, which I guess we should have knew was coming because they are companies, and especially in America, we do live in a capitalistic society. Like, the Black Hokage talks about it all the time, how the quality of games is not wrong, is what's wrong with gaming. It's capitalism. And I think especially in the Western world, that's what's wrong with everything. That's what's wrong with the music industry. That's what's wrong with the games industry. That's what's wrong with the film industry. That's what's wrong with fashion. That's what's wrong with all of us. Capitalistic fatigue. We're tired of being nickel and dimed. I think a lot of people are just tired of being nickel and dimed. And then it's like, because of our technological advances, like, things have gotten so affordable to be good. And so people are looking towards going towards things that are good enough rather than being perfect. So you see people going back and getting the point and shoot cameras, because it's like, as these phones keep trying to make their cameras damn near perfect, people are just like, what's good enough? At least a large section of people, I won't say a large section of people, a niche section of people right now, because it's not that large. It's large enough to have caused a movement to where, like, you see it and it's visible and you know about it for the most part, but it's not large enough to where it's impacting any kind of profit margins. I think the good thing that it is doing, though, is it's large enough to where it's like still niche, but large enough to where I think there are companies that can come in and like actually provide services and products that appeal to these people, and they be popular enough that they can survive off of them. Like Samsung's best-selling phones every single year now are their mid-range line. It's the A series. Like, the best-selling phones in the world are the mid-range lines because they're just so affordable, but they're so good. Like, people that had phones from 5-6 years ago and are just now upgrading, like, the jump, bro. Like, think about 2023, right? When the A53 came out, right? Like, if you were upgrading from a phone from 2017, which would have been what, the iPhone 8 at that time? Like, if you were upgrading from something like that all the way into, like, new mid-range Samsung, you were seeing a sizable jump in technological prowess and what you were able to do. So, like, yeah, it may not be quite what the flagship are, but what are the flagships? Because the flagships are like, they're slightly faster, they're slightly more capable in terms of if you're going to be gaming, if you're going to be content creating, if you're going to be doing this or if you're going to be doing that, right? But most of the new, like, flagship smartphone features are in AI and stuff like that. Like, they've taken so many different components, like physical components, away from these things that's not what differentiates them anymore. It's software stuff. But when most people are just trying to surf the web, when most people are just trying to, make calls and get on social media, it's like, do you really need it for that? If you're a high-end content creator, some of them shoot with their iPhones, but most high-end content creators just have a video camera. You know what I mean? Like, iPhones is for people like me that's doing this. But even me, I have higher end DSLRs and video cameras. Like, if you're a gamer, are you really gaming on your phone that much? Like, yes, it's viable to do it, but I have a PC, bro. Like, I don't, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's only niche stuff that's gonna appeal to the higher ends of that market. So you have a place in the middle where people can go. You have a place in the middle of fashion where people can go. Like, Shein just opened a actual physical store in the mall in Georgia. And people can say whatever they want about fast fashion, but the thing is, people love it because they just want to dress in a way that expresses themselves for affordable amounts of money, and they don't mind if it's not quite the same kind of quality. Now, I think eventually they'll get tired of it, but there's a difference. Like, for me, for example, right? There are certain things I buy from the fast fashion thing that I just do as, like, everyday wears, right? Like, they're just my everyday clothes. They're just my step out the house, go here, go there clothes. And then I have clothes for when I go out with my friends. I have clothes that are higher quality for when I go with my family or when I'm going to this event or that event. Like, there's a place where people are just like, hey, man, I just want clothes that I can just wear out, bro. I just want them to wear out. I just want them to be able to when I put on something to go grocery shopping or go run my errands, I just want to throw something on that look cool. That's where people are at. And, like, does that play into the thing with maximizing profit margins? In a way, yes. But it's in a way in which it's affordable for the people. And so they're not as anti that. Because they just want to be able to actually participate in and afford it. Like, people can't afford paying for Netflix and Disney Plus, which has Hulu now, but, like, and Disney Plus and NBA TV and Spotify and YouTube Premium, and, like, they just can't afford to pay for all of these things because then it becomes a monthly bill of $100+. That's why people are trying to look for cell phone plans that are cheaper, because it's just like, man, for so long, Verizon and T-Mobile were family plans you could get for $50, and then somewhere in the 2010s, they got up to $150, $200 fucking dollars. You had a family of 4, you're paying $200. It's just like, man, that's not tenable. it's just not tenable for people. It's like, dang, we were looking forward to the future. Yes, we were looking forward to this technology, but when you price us out of it and then tell us we also don't own it, when Nintendo is putting their game cartridges out, and it's like, bro, we want you to bring cartridges out so that we can actually have the experience of putting the cartridges in the game or in the game system, but now they're $10 more. Every one of your games is almost $100, and then like a large section of them are going to be like basically key cards where you put them in so that they can access your digital download on the system. Like, and it's not affecting Nintendo in the way that, because the Switch 2 is the fastest selling console of all time. It sold 3 million units within the first 2-3 weeks. So it's not like it's a huge deal to where it's gonna affect the margins at the casual level, because the casual market is the biggest. They're the ones that's going to go out and buy it. It's going to be a huge success. But there are people that are looking at it and saying, like, hardcore gamers are looking at that and saying, nah, man, why would I want to be in that ecosystem when they're doing stuff like that? Why would I want to be in that ecosystem when PlayStation was offering upgrades for PS4 games that come to PS5? Most of them were free, at least at first they were. You telling me I got the Breath of the Wild cartridge, I put it in my Switch 2 and it worked, but if I don't pay $10, I don't get 60 FPS? Why would I do that? Because on PC, if I buy a game from wherever, however long ago it was, if I buy the original Modern Warfare 2 from 08, 09, like, if I got a new graphics card, that bitch go run at 1440p, 156 frames per second. As it should. You get what I'm saying? Like, these are the things that I think that it's still a small amount of people. It's still mostly on the internet. And it's still only in certain corners. But I think there are people that are getting tired of it because they're looking at it and they're saying, bro, the future that we thought we were headed to, the things that they said they were promising, the things that like sounded good at first have become just like billboards. They become advertisement shops. Like, why are people on TikTok on TikTok on the TikTok shop? Why is there an Instagram shop? Why is there a Facebook shop? Like, Facebook Marketplace, okay, you're dealing with actual people that are selling stuff. But it's like, no, these are companies that are selling stuff to you on the shop. These are people that are only using Instagram now to promote their brand. Like, it's like, yes, there's a space for brands, but what happened to the space for people? The people, like, if you get popular enough as a person on Instagram, you automatically become an influencer, and now brands are hitting you up to use your page as a advertising space. And it's like, it's space for that, but also at the same time, it's like, do I want that with everybody I come into contact with, though, bro? What happened to people posting their families sitting at Disneyland? It doesn't really exist on Instagram anymore. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. If it does exist, it's a vlog for a reel. You know what I mean? Like, it's for getting engagement. It's everything's about the sale. And then you're selling me things that I can't own. And you're selling me things that you're not going to show me or show anybody else after they become quote unquote outdated. I think it's a certain sect of people that are just like, nah, bro, that's not the future I signed up for. So I'd rather go back to the past when things weren't like that. I'd rather go back and at least try to restart. I'd rather go back and, do things the old-fashioned way and just stay that way if this is the way we're headed. Like, it's becoming more and more dystopian, and some people are just like, nah, man, I'm out on that. I don't want that. And I don't blame them. Tell me what y'all think. Be your boy T. Peace.